Alright guys, so this thing just appeared in the mail, so I'm very excited to unbox it, so yeah. Alright, so with the magic of editing, we got this thing open. I'm gonna have to deal with a lot of this stuff, but let's start dealing with this little stuff here first. So let's take this over to the table. This is compared to my Railway Series Thomas there, so yeah. Alright, so with this open, let's see what's inside. I would assume that this is figures because of how light the box is. Just gonna throw those to the side there, as every good person does with packing peanuts. Make sure that they don't go everywhere. Alright, let's pick out this first piece of bubble wrap here. Let's see. Looks like this is the soccer field team. I'll get this unwrapped real quick. Alright, so I was right. It is the sports team. You can see there. Looks like that's the coach in there, but it also came with little flags, as you can see here. They look pretty nice. I will save these guys for later. Let's put those over there. Now, let's get this guy out. I was correct. Looks like this is the large-scale model of their coach. As you can see, you know, there's the head. There's the body. Looks like this is how they animated the people. They would put their head on there and, you know, swivel it around. So that's pretty cool. Next package. So we're on the next one. I'm gonna pick the second smallest package, but I started clearing stuff away, and there's a metal crate, or not metal, wood crate here. I did not expect a giant wood crate in the box. Looks like here's the certificates and stuff. It's pretty cool, so let's put that over there. All right, now, looks like there's another box here. The smaller of the two for sure, so let's get that unboxed real quick. All right, so here's the next one. I would assume that this is the moles because of the size. Did not expect them to be this big. Here is the Thomas in size compared to that. As you can see, they're pretty big, so let's get it unboxed. All right, so here's the box. Definitely can't wait to get this unboxed. Like, you can see my hands are shaking right now. So, there's a lot of packing peanuts, you know, we'll save those for later. I will clear these away and show you what's inside. Alright, so that was kind of a big box for these guys, but, you know, it is what it is. Here's the moles. You know, you got the 1, 2, and the little guy, so that's pretty cool. You can see the back of the one here as well, pretty clear, so that's cool. But we all want to see what's inside the bubble wrap, so I will clear this away and show you guys. Seems like there's quite a few layers of bubble wrap on this, so there's one layer down. That's 2 layers down, and you can, you know, start to see all the guys. They're definitely pretty big. Here's Thomas to scale again. You know, kind of monsters, like a Godzilla compared to Thomas. Now here is the last layer of bubble wrap. This is really exciting. All right, and now comes the big reveal. So 3, 2, 1. There they are. This is really cool. So we got, you know, a little guy and the 2 big guys. I don't remember them being on top of a stage, so I'd assume that this was covered in sand during filming. But I will definitely show you guys an in-depth look real quick. Alright, so now it's time to show, you know, the whole sides of these guys. I got gloves on now because, you know, I do not want to destroy these props whatsoever. So let's see here. There's the stage. Looks like there's a little button here to, you know, flip them back and forth. Let's see here. It looks like the back of the stage got either broken or what, I don't know what, in shipping. So it's kind of unfortunate. There's the tails. I don't believe we saw the back sides of these guys in the show, so there's a brand new look of them, I guess. It's pretty cool. I got the bubble wrap out from under them because it was hard to, slide them around. So here's, the other sides of these guys. They're very intricate models. Every detail looks like it was put into these. Yeah, it looks like the back of the stage was broken, but nothing can't be restored, so. Table was cleaned off. Just for everyone that's kind of a clean freak, I cleaned off the table so these guys wouldn't get damaged. Looks like there's some stuff from the sand that they used during filming. That was in the listing though, so, not too bad. There's the first guy, looking pretty good. Scarf, got the hat. Here's a little look at him. There's the second one, got the hat, scarf, Looks like this one got damaged. It's kind of unfortunate, but, I will try my best not to, widen these cracks at all, so keep that there. And then here's the little guy. I believe that he had glasses in the actual episode, but looks like they were lost, so that's kind of unfortunate. It wasn't in the listing. So, yeah, there's the moles. Now here's a quick view of the underside. I'm, holding these guys up so they don't get damaged, but real quick, looks like there's a servo on each mole that helps control it. There's a giant wire that looks like it kept them together. So there's the servo, here's the battery pack, and then some wires. Looks like it goes to the button up there. So yeah, this is like the bottom of the moles. That's really cool. We never saw this in the show either, so, I guess the stage was there to hold them all together as well. So, it's pretty cool. I'll see if I can, get this running. But yeah, here's a closer look at that switch. It looks like this position's off, this position's on. It does work. I will see if I can get this working with batteries, which would be really cool to see these models working, See their heads flipping back and forth, but, it's pretty cool. Taking one more quick look at these guys. It looks like these two, their heads are locked in place with the servos, but this one kind of, I think, broke free. It was like that in the listing, this one's head was over here, and then these two were, facing the last position they were in, but this one looks like it just, free roams. I'll try to get that restored, because that would be pretty cool if it was back to its original state. So, it's pretty cool. Here's those letters from earlier, it's the certificates it looks like, sealed by Prop Store, COA enclosed, so I will show these off pretty soon, so that's pretty cool. Put those over there for now. And then here's Thomas, one more look with Thomas, and these things are pretty big compared to Thomas. You could see that the stage is about the same height as him. There's, about a more accurate view. And then the moles, it's like if I put Thomas vertically, it seems that he's about as tall as one of them, so, it's pretty cool. All right, now that the moles are out of the way, we got this big box. Looks like if I, fish around in here, it doesn't look like there's anything else. I will try my best to, make sure that there's nothing else as well, because, no one wants to lose props in the trash. There's the big box, top. So there you go. There's that. But it doesn't seem like there's anything else in this package, so let me get this guy out and onto the table. So here's the Bankert's boat, I believe. Here's the box, here's the top. Here's the side. I guess this is the prop number. So there's that. Here's the back. I guess I gotta clear these away, Here's a little arrow. Thank you, Arrow, for telling me where to go. there's the top. I'm gonna see if I can get this unboxed. So it looks like to open this box, I had to get a screwdriver and get these screws out because I looked around the whole box and the whole part was nailed shut. So these are the only two little accessible parts here. I'll show you guys when this panel is off, and yeah. All right, so here it is, the Bankert boat. Now this is an unused prop. It was an off-the-shelf boat, but you know, still really cool. So I guess here's where someone would have stood. Here's the deck. You know, you got your anchors. Sorry if I don't know my sailor, you know, technology stuff. So here's the back. You can see it says Bankert. So I found this little square in the package, so I'd assume it broke off during shipping. So let's put this piece right back up there. There we go. So that's pretty cool. This little piece of wood was lodged in the back. As you can see, there is a sizable, you know, gap there. So I'll try my best to figure out what this piece was. But, you know, here's the back. It's pretty cool. Here's a rope. It's not real. I'm pretty sure it's plastic, you know. This is an off-the-shelf model from back then. So, you know, here's the hook. I'm sure that would have been used for something. You know, it can swivel around pretty well. Here's a rope. Sure, that probably would have tasseled to something. Maybe this would have run into the dock at, you know, Brenham Docks or something. Here's a flag. Here's, you know, the main cab area. You can see the clear glass windows. There's some railings there, door. Here's the top, as you can see. I'll flip this thing around real quick. I think that this side is much better because it has, you know, it doesn't look like it's been worn. But a common theme with a lot of these props is that they're probably dusty. As you can see, there's a lot of dust on this thing. So there's that. But here's the other side, you know, not too different from that side. Of course, we got, you know, all the standard stuff you'd see on a boat. Here's the top again. You know, some crew member would probably sit there. Probably put one of these little guys up there, so, you know. Here's, you know, the deck. Looks like something ripped off, but we still got one more bag of things that look like they came off in the prop store, so there's that. And overall, this is a really impressive model. I'm not sure why they didn't use this in the show. Here's the bottom of the boat. Now it looks like this part's broken back here, so I'm going to be very careful with it. Not sure if that propeller there is attached to the motor. There might be a motor in there somewhere, but, you know, I'm not going to, you know, fiddle with it and try to get it to work. There's the paddles in the back. Looks like the one has a line going out to it. It has a piece of whatever that is, plasticine probably going out to it, but the other doesn't, so it looks like it should just come off easily. Looks like this paint wore off easily as well, so I'm going to try to be very careful with this model and not break it. Here's that bag of things that look like they fell off. This wasn't even used in the show, so there's a lot of like wires and, you know, things that looked like they probably would have been fitted on. Here's a propeller, you know, here's the tower. I think this was on the boat in the listing. I'll have to check that out, but I'll try to put that back on the boat if it was. So here's more wires. Looks like a tiny rotor piece maybe. Not too sure. But this bag is kind of just for things that, you know, weren't put on the boat, and ultimately the whole boat was scrapped, so, you know, I guess it is what it is. But yeah, there's the boat. I'll flip it up one more time so you guys can see. All right, here's the front again. Looks like something ripped off there. I don't think it's any of these bits though. These parts just look like they came with the boat. Maybe were painted over by the modelers. But here's one more last look at the boat. It's very long, compared to Thomas. If I grab him, put him, well, I guess I'll hold him. But compared to the boat, that's pretty huge. I believe this thing was listed as 27 inches or so. So, you know, I will take that in consideration. My final thoughts on these models, they're very detailed. And, you know, you kind of have to be detailed in the show. But, you know, there's a lot of intricate little bits that could easily be broken off if not handled carefully. This boat's definitely gone through it. There's quite a few bits that are missing, including the stuff in this bag here. The moles, you know, the one head broke off, it seems. It just swivels around instead of these two, which are locked in place. So it's pretty unfortunate that these guys broke. We'll get these guys out of the bag real quick and show you. All right, so here's the guys out of their box. You know, you got the three players over here, you know, ready to play. Actually, I'm not quite sure what sport this was. I was about to say soccer, but, you know, they don't have soccer in the UK, so there's those. I think it was cricket, actually. Then here's the four other players. You know, you got a team of 7 and the coach. So you got the coach here. So you can see his head. Looks really good. You can see that his hat was painted on. You can see the little brush marks. Here's his face. So that's pretty cool. And then here's his body. I'll try to set these guys up for you so you guys can see how they look. So here's all the players. You know, you got the coach and then the players. And then here's what the 3 parts look like of one. You got the body, the scarf, and the face. All of them are meant to have their heads swivel, as you can see by these little sticks for their necks. It attaches inside the body here. You can see by that little hole there. And then the scarves can come off as well, so it's pretty cool. As for the coach, I think the scarf is painted on there. He's one model. He was meant to swivel his head as well, so that's pretty cool. All of these characters can swivel their heads, you know. You got the moles, you got the coach, and now you got the players. And I think this one was the one that couldn't, it won't stand up, but the other ones can stand up freely. I'm not going to stand them up too long so that none of them get damaged. Here's what was in that envelope, the certificates, you know. So let's see here, we got the first one. Well, actually, I'll pull them both out real quick. Let's see here, so we got the moles, the coach, and the players. Certificate of authenticity signed by Ian McHugh. Alex Godfrey, which is a prop store member, and then we got the prop store. I assume that's another signature, and then there's the, you know, flashy sticker. So it's pretty cool. There's the text. You could read that if you want to pause the video and read it. Thomas and Friends from 1984 to 2008. So that's pretty cool. Wonder what happened in 2008. So let's see here. The next one is Bankard's Boat. You know, same people signed it. There's a sticker. There's the text that you can read. You know, it's really cool. That picture looks like the boat. You know, it's pretty cool. It's got the stamp and everything. Then I guess this is an ad for a show that they're putting on June 3rd to July 2nd. Or I guess it's auctions, I suppose, for, you know, live action props from TV shows. So you can see there's the text, as you can read that. There's that. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a little envelope down there. Here's the tag of what looks like the, I would assume it is the moles. So there's that. Either that or the boat. So yeah. Overall, this lot is probably the coolest thing I will own. So we got the moles, you know, the 3 guys that were like, he's good, very good. To Buster, you know, who's going over the mole hills. And then the coach and the players, you know, they're very excited because the mole's hills got destroyed. Now I'm personally sad because these guys don't have a home now. But, you know, there's the coach and the players. They're all happy. Then there's the boat. Looks like it would have been used at Brandon Docks at some point as one of those background boats. Or it could have been used in a cut episode. Who knows? But, you know, overall, these props are probably the coolest thing I'll own. Certificates there. And then let's put Thomas next to these guys. Show how big they are. There's lengthwise. There's, you know, Thomas compared to the coach. It looks like Thomas is about the same size as him. That's pretty cool. And then compared to the boat, you know, it's really large. So I don't know how I'm going to store this. I think going forward, I am going to try to restore these to the best of my ability. You know, you got the ship, got a ton of missing parts on it. Got this part here. Try to glue that down. And then I'll see what these parts are for as well. But overall, thank you guys for watching. I would love to know if the Unlucky Tug would do a collab with these guys and Patrick, you know. This whole video was inspired by Unlucky Tug, so, you know, shout outs to him, I guess. Even though he's, you know, a much larger YouTuber. But, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Love to see what you guys have to say in the comments about these guys. And thanks for watching.